When it comes to video games, there's always a debate about which way is the best to have them. Should you go with physical games and feel that you actually own something, especially those amazing collector's editions that you can proudly display? Or should you go with the convenience of having them digitally and never having to leave your couch again? Or maybe a mix of both. Which one is truly better? Get ready, because today we are going to show 10 pros and cons of physical versus digital media.
Super players.
Number 1. Pricing is one of the most important things when it comes to buying video games. And with physical games, buying them cheaper is one of the biggest advantages over digital media. When a game is new, it costs the full price. But if you can wait a little, the price tends to go down over time. And after a while, you can find good discounts quite easily. Not to mention that physical games lose their peak value as soon as the first time use seal is broken. So buying them used but cheaper is also a good alternative. Also important to note is that sometimes you can also get good prices on new physical games, specifically on titles that didn't sell as well as expected, as they can go on sale on store shelves while still being brand new. Digital games, on the other hand, do not have this advantage. They go on sale, but the sales are not always available. There is a fixed amount of time as to when they would have a sale, and even then, the prices are not always as good as used physical games. So you're seasonally limited out, and even then, you don't always get the best prices. So physical games are a much better deal in terms of prices if you're on a budget. Number 2. Sometimes you need money to buy more games or consoles, and sometimes you need money for something else. And in both cases, letting go of games you've already beaten is extremely useful. You can sell any of your physical games to other gamers or shops, which will make you a decent amount of your money back, and then you can spend it on anything that you want. Also, if it's a particularly rare game, there's a chance it will increase its value over time too. And besides selling, you can also trade them, which also works both with shops and with other gamers. Sometimes trading can cover up to half the cost of the new game that you want to buy. Digital games cannot be sold, unfortunately. So that's an entire advantage from physical games that is lost on digital releases. Number 3. Sharing video games helps people experience different things without having to pay for them. With physical games, it's as easy as simply handing the games over to your friends, with little to nothing else required. But physically sharing a game comes with its limitations. First of all, if it's a PC game, you might not be able to share it at all, because most of them come with CD keys that are assigned to a single person who registers the game to their account. Secondly, and not just for PC games, physical releases often come with DLC codes, and they are registered to a single account. So anyone you share the game with will be unable to access any additional content. Digital games, on the other hand, have a lot more to offer. First of all, you can share your entire library at any time that you want, and you don't have to worry about lending a game and not having it for some time instead. Then we have the fact that digitally sharing games means your DLC is shared with the other person too, which is something that you can't do with physical games. However, there is a bit of a difference based on each platform. For Steam, you and your friend can't play the same game at the same time, but this limitation does not exist on sharing digital games on Xbox and PlayStation accounts, as you simply have to let your friend log into your account once, and then both of you can enjoy the game at the same time on different accounts. But unfortunately, there is a 2-person limit on this. PlayStation even has the Share Play feature, which lets you share your console over the internet, so your friend can play your games. Although, of course, your console has to be turned on and connected to the internet to work. And while sharing digital games and accounts has a lot of advantages, there is also a risk involved the moment you give somebody else your password or log into your account on their device. Although there is always a way to recover your account if you have access to your email. So, while both physical and digital games can be shared, the ability to simply kick back and let your friend enjoy your entire library with minimal effort is unmatched. Number 4. Availability has always been something that can be a bit on the complicated side for video games. When it comes to physical games, there are several things to note, The most important one is that some games, especially indie ones, don't even see a physical release at all, and thus are not available whatsoever. Also, as time goes on, many of them get very hard and expensive to obtain. Last but not least, physical games go out of stock too, and at times never return to storefronts, which leaves buying used as the only option, which is further complicated by rarity in some cases. Digital, on the other hand, is far better in terms of availability. There are no issues with stock or rarity, as you can buy as many of them as you want. And lots of games have only been released exclusively in digital format. So it makes the number of games that you can obtain far higher. Even better, game services like Game Pass and PlayStation Plus let you try hundreds of games for a monthly fee, and all of them are digital games. And of course, companies constantly re-release classic video games, allowing you to try them out on the new platforms, as you'd need the original hardware and the game itself otherwise. So in that aspect, digital is much better. Number 5. When it comes to longevity, people often think that a physical game is something you own forever. However, this argument seems to ignore the fact that the medium in which physical games are stored is very fragile indeed. Scratches can ruin a disc, they can easily break, and even the material itself can become damaged over time no matter how much care you take. Digital games, on the other hand, have come a long way by now. Every console manufacturer has invested a lot of time and effort in having stable servers that keep your games safe on the cloud. So, if you own a game digitally, you don't have to worry about losing it or damaging it in any way. You can easily delete them and then download them again when you need them back. The bad thing here is that you do need to be online for most games if you own them digitally, and it really depends on each platform or game how much you can play while being offline, if at all. On the other hand, even some physical games still require the player to be connected to the internet to download lots of updates. And games like Gran Turismo 7 really limits what you can play offline, making a physical game basically require you to always be connected to the internet. Unfortunately, it is also worth mentioning that technically a digital game can be removed from a storefront or your account without previous notice. Although Steam, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, and other companies are putting a lot of effort into making sure that their servers remain available for decades to come, there is always some risk involved of losing access to your games or account. But yeah, right now, it seems that digital is still the better option for longevity. Number 6. Physical games require storage space in real life, and when you start getting more and more of them, it can really become a problem. And then things like the disc or cartridge being damaged comes into play too. Also, for more recent titles, every time you insert the game into a modern-day device, you will have the incomplete version until all of the digital updates and content are installed. Digital games are much more convenient, since they are stored on your device, so you can switch between them at any time without having to move from your chair or sofa. You can't damage digital games in any way, and every time you install them, the latest updates are downloaded with them by default. And as mentioned previously, sharing your entire library is very easy too, compared to giving your game physically and potentially losing it in the process. The only downside in terms of convenience with digital games is that if your account is hacked or you lose your access to it in any way, you can lose your entire games library too. So it's something to keep in mind. But right now, digital is so much more convenient. Number 7. When it comes to the eco-friendly side of things, digital games are the easy winner. Obviously, physical games require the physical media where they'll be stored. And then we have the game boxes, manuals, booklets, pages with DLC codes, and advertisements. It's all further wrapped in plastic wrap, and even more plastic in bags and cardboard boxes when you get it out of a store or shipped to you. Digital games don't have any of these factors, as they are simply stored inside servers, which do use electricity and other things, but it keeps the environmental impact to a minimum, and a single server keeps thousands of games, unlike game cases which are kept individually by each person in their collection. So yeah, you can save some penguins while going digital. Number 8. There is absolutely no advantage that digital games have over physical in terms of beauty. Physical games come in beautiful packaging that collectors can display on their shelves. And of course, the feeling of holding your game in the palm of your hands is unmatched, and it truly feels like you own that game. Even better, there's a bunch of amazing special editions that have statues and other game-related items that make each game feel like what they are, a true work of art that you can proudly display. Digital games are basically shown as a picture inside of your device, so having a collection of digital games sometimes can feel like having nothing at all. Number 9. Before the current generation of consoles, physical games were considered faster to get playing, since you could simply pop them into your console and start playing immediately. But as time went on, more and more frequently you had to download and install updates to play the game. And of course, you can launch a game without the updates on some consoles, but depending on the game, it can be in such a broken state that it's simply not worth it. Digital, on the other hand, is a complete download from the very beginning. And some games can be played even before the full download is completed in the background. It's overall a faster and more convenient method, but there are still some complications to consider. You may have an internet data cap, which could be a problem considering the fact that video games keep getting bigger and bigger. Also, your internet might be slow, which makes it impossible to download games without a long wait that can go from a few hours to a few days. So ultimately, which medium gets you playing faster really depends on your internet speed. Number 10. Backwards compatibility is something that unfortunately has lost its relevance in physical games. In the old days, you could do things like insert a PS1 game into a PS2 to enjoy it without any problem. And Nintendo offered similar capabilities in their handheld consoles too. But that started to change in later generations as Sony removed the backwards compatibility features from their older consoles, and Nintendo kept changing their format, which ultimately did the same thing. For that reason, digital gaming is the best option that we have for backwards compatibility. And of course, gaming PCs typically do not have this problem, as they are able to run almost every game ever released, since they don't have generations like their console counterparts. As for consoles, ever since digital gaming became convenient, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo have started to re-release many older games on their official storefronts, and through subscription services, sometimes even with enhanced graphics, like how it happens on the Xbox side. So even if you have a large collection of physical games, if you don't have the older console available, you're more likely to play old games on newer consoles through digital means. This makes digital the winner of backwards compatibility. At the end of the day, there's definitely both pros and cons to going with either of these two approaches. But at least now you know what they are and can make a more educated decision. So which one do you prefer? Are you going physical only, digital only, or a mix of both? Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you again in our next video.
Super Players.